All right, I have the thumbs up from the tower that we're live, and we'll head right into our first public hearing tonight. We have two, and then into our regular council meeting, but the first one is a non-stat public hearing. And before we get into the public hearings, I just thought I'd make council aware of a little bit of a process change. Tonight is going to be the first time that we do this way, and here's the reason. We've got it written out. To ensure that non-statutory and statutory public hearings are more focused on hearing from the affected parties, which include the applicants and residents, there will be no presentation from administration during public hearings from this point forward. Administration will present their recommended action and their thoughts on the application at second reading. So really the whole process change is about hearing from people and not from administration at this point, and we didn't want there to be ever a case where administration looks like they're arguing or debating with an applicant in any manner, so that's the reason for the change. So just to make everybody aware, so we'll do our best as we navigate these new waters, but I don't think it'll be too much of a change for anybody, so decided to bring that to everybody's attention. So, any questions on that, sorry? No? Okay, pretty straightforward. The purpose of the non-stat public hearing is to receive comments on the proposed amendments to the Greystone Area C Neighbourhood Plan. Administration has confirmed that the requirements of the Municipal Government Act relative to the advertisement and notice period have been complied with. So at this point, we will ask the, well, I've already moved into two things on the agenda, that's great. So I will invite the applicant up to speak on the neighborhood plan. And I believe that is Patrick Wetter. Patrick, did I get your name right this time?
Yes, you did, thank you.
Awesome, well, good afternoon, welcome.
I'll just bring up my presentation, which I think was loaded up. Hello, members of council. Thank you for having me. I'm Patrick Wetter from B&A Planning Group. With me is Josh Hagan from Burns West, and I'm here to present to you on three different items. I'm going to start with the neighborhood plan, which is just following your agenda. You may see a few land use aspects, which I'll get to later on in the next round of the public hearing. So I'll be focusing in this presentation on phase 2, which is shown on this aerial photo. River Avenue is just towards the east, as well as Riverview. And right now, phase 2 is identified as special industrial. So I'm showing you the land use map because that we're proposing for a redesignation. That's because at this point in time, our proposal is not aligned with the neighborhood plan. Our proposal identifies the yellow to be residential low density, the orange to be residential mixed, as well as the park spaces, which are PR. So to accommodate the proposed phase 2 land use redesignation, we have requested some amendments to land use neighborhood plan, As part of that process, administration also asked us to clean up a few items in the neighborhood plan itself. And number one was to align the neighborhood plan with the new land use bylaw, which you have recently approved, to recognize an existing ATCO line that runs on the southeast corner of the property, incorporate a revised River Avenue cross-section, and then reflect the latest phasing, which is based on market conditions. I'll run you through these in more detail. Just as an overview, here's the original approved plan that council had approved a few years ago. And you can see the dashed line on the south west corner is where we're focused. And here's the revised plan. Really, there's not too much of a change, but I'll go through those. So number one, as I mentioned, we wanted to revise the anticipated land use districts to be in line with the latest land use bylaw. So you can see how the yellow and the yellow go from R1 to RLD, the orange and the orange go from R2 to RMX, etc. So you can see where they all are aligning with the new land use bylaw. And now here's the specific change that we're requesting. You can see on the left the original outline plan, neighborhood plan that was approved by council, and then on the right our proposed. You can see that the bigger dashed box is right now R1, and we're proposing it to be RMX, so that's residential mixed, which we would anticipate to be semi-detached dwellings. And then you can see the R2 that are two little boxes right here that are now proposed to be residential low density, which would be the single detached dwellings. As well, there's the ATCO line that runs in a southeasterly direction here, and it just crosses a little corner of the property, which we want to recognize as a public utility lot, which would be owned by the town, and it would be PR, which is the zoning for it. In terms of the density difference, the original approved neighborhood plan had 694 units anticipated. This is increased to 719. When we look at the density then, and just a reminder that density is units over gross developable residential area, so that does not include area for commercial or business uses. It only includes residential and the associated parks. We go from 8.1 to 8.6. The reason for what might seem a little bit of a jump is that first we do have 25 more units because a few of the areas are going from from singles to semi-detached. However, we have actually 2 acres less of gross developable residential area, and that's because we are widening River Avenue, and I'll get into that detail in a minute. So even with that density change, District 1, which is as close to Riverview as compared to the rest of the development, is still at 6 units per acre, which is 2 units per acre less than the MDP targets, just to give you a point of reference. So it's very reflective, the density is very reflective of Riverview today. And now with the Riverview cross-section, and here's how we have proposed a revision which shows we are going from 6.1 meters landscape boulevard to 10 meters landscape boulevard. So this 4 additional meters will buffer the development from Riverview, as well as you can see we will be providing the regional pathway along the edge here for the residents as well as those in the town of Cochrane to use. And then finally, we have phasing. So due to market circumstances, some of the phasing has changed as we found opportunities. So phase 7, which is over here, has changed to phase 2, which is what we're discussing today. Phase 4 over here is what you've actually just recently approved as a commercial site, is going to phase 1. And then phase 1, part of it has gone to phase 6. So I just want to go through the benefits of this amendment. So the first one I'll get into, that's related to the land use district that we'll be discussing later, but the next 3 are appropriate, or the next 4 are appropriate for this discussion. We're providing a greater variety of residential product to meet the diverse housing needs of homeowners in Cochrane. It reflects the current market demand, and it provides additional buffer to existing Riverview community. And the last point is for the other land use district, phase 3 that we'll be talking about, but it will commence Greystone's Main Street. So that's my presentation on the neighborhood amendments. I'd be happy to take any questions, and as I mentioned, Josh Hagan is also available from Burns West.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Council, questions of the applicant? Councilor Reid?
Thank you for the presentation. There were 2 things that I wanted to raise. One was the widening of River Avenue. So that, I thought that was on, then it was off, but now I understand it's on again, and that is to create a buffer and a regional pathway. Is that the advantage of widening it?
So we've always had proposed a regional pathway and a 6.1 meter wide landscape buffer. This time around, after going through the, I guess, detailed design process through subdivision, it was recognized that we would have the ability to accommodate a 10 meter landscape buffer. So this is added now. Not only are we keeping the pathway, but we're also widening it even more, so more opportunity for vegetation and trees and things like that to I guess, buffer, but also make the space of the community more attractive.
That's great. I think that's an amenity that our community would like, at least from my perspective. The other comment I had was, under the benefits, you identified a hotel use. Is that a reality, or is that just a wish?
Yeah, so it's kind of going back to what we'll be talking about a little bit later.
Yeah, why don't we keep that to the
Yeah,
next public hearing? That'll be the phase 3, I think, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
correct.
We'll just
Thank you.
park that question. We're not gonna skip over it. We'll just come
Park
back
it.
to it.
Park it.
Park it. Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Flowers?
Good evening. Could you explain what you mean by we'd have greater variety in housing for residents? I think I missed that. Thank you.
Sure. So that's, if I go to the overall plan, it's, I mean, Greystone itself is intended to provide a variety of housing as it is with, we have proposal for singles, semi-detached, townhouses, apartment buildings, in this development. So someone can find their housing needs within this community as it is. We're now bringing this to reality, I guess is the point. So these land use changes and then the neighborhood plan amendment will bring a lot of these to reality. The specific change on going from, right now we show a lot of, I guess you could say yellow, the R1 or the RLD is a lot of singles, which you see throughout Cochrane, but we're providing a little more semi-detached to provide a little more variety within this community itself.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor McFadden?
Yes, thank you. Just following up on kind of where Councillor Reid was asking about the widening of River Ave. And so obviously that's going to be for the whole width of the parcel, I guess, from the entire north-south. So my question, I don't know if the question is for you or more maybe to our staff, is how do we work? I mean, I think that's an amazing addition, and I think it really creates a sense of place for that street. But then how do we work with the property owners to the north and south to make that entire street happen? Are those conversations happening? And are you doing the work just on one side of the street, or is the whole street? And then finally, what's the timing?
Right, for sure. So the first, I guess, point of clarification is we are doing widening all the way from the north end here down towards right about here, and it tapers off again. And this is just to align, I guess, the cross section for this existing street to the south. So we're not sure on timing in terms of these individuals, in terms of when they'll be coming forward with the development. So we wanted to match their existing cross section.
Okay.
To the north, however, we have been working with, as part of the area structure plan process, we worked with the sawmill looking at their future vision for this. So we've identified to them at least the intent for the a boulevard as well as a pathway, and as such, when they come through to the neighborhood plan stage, whenever that may be, I'm not sure, that's when those conversations will have to go into more details how that can be accommodated on their property. So right now the use is as it is, a sawmill, so we'd have to wait until they decide to redevelop that. And then the last piece is that I understand there's engineering, design, and subdivision submitted already to the town to accommodate such widening, at least within the Greystone parcel. So I anticipate it'll be happening relatively quickly.
So you see that widening in this construction season is the thought?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And maybe we can, along with the parking lot, that could be something administration could address in second reading? Yeah. The connection between the other landowners? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Federico, sorry, that was you.
Thanks for the information. When it comes to the potential future connection and that potential future connection line there at the very top, will there be a pathway that extends out? I mean, I would hate to say that we shouldn't plan for a pathway, and I see it's not necessarily, maybe it's in this plan? Is it in that plan?
Yes, we're showing, so the area structure plan, which is the higher level plan, does show a pathway connection going all the way to the north, as well continue on the I guess the north part. So when the neighborhood plan comes in for what we're being calling Area B, they will have to figure out how to incorporate it within the redevelopment.
So I'm actually looking at like in between, I guess, the yellow and the Area B, if there's a pathway that's going to extend that way. Just being that I find that many of our communities, we end up developing pathways on the peripheral of all our communities, but then when you're living on the interior, it's very sometimes difficult to get out and to connect back to a pathway. So where that red dotted line is at the top, bordering onto the top purple portion, whether or not there could be a pathway that actually comes in before we plan for that future area.
And sorry, you're thinking east-west?
Yes.
Right. There is certainly a possibility. On itself, we've planned a pathway to go east-west across the site, not only here, but also along the southern boundary as well. So I think that's, well, I can't answer for them, you know, but I would anticipate that would be the conversation they would have to have with the town about how are they going to provide a pathway network for residents within their future development.
Perfect. Maybe that's something that we can just note with it as administration to make sure that that is carried through. Because, like I said, we plan these things, but then all of a sudden people are all living there and they can't get out, and it's just becomes very difficult. And then they find pathways to cut themselves out. So,
Right.
Thank you.
No other questions. I have one, maybe two. Around the density, in your application, you referenced council in the neighborhood plan when we endorsed it, I think in 2019 or 18, whenever, a couple of years ago. We talked about a buffer of lower density along River Avenue. I guess my question is, while we've had conversations as a group and through our strategic sessions, et cetera, and just over time, we've talked and referenced a great deal of times our community vision, which talks about more density in our downtown core. Is there and I'm trying to find a way to phrase this question, but I guess, is there an appetite for, or is there an opportunity, I guess is the better way to say it, for us to add density in some of these areas? Maybe if it's not in phase or in this neighborhood plan amendment, or maybe my question is better directed at phase 2 or 3, but where would we have that opportunity to increase density, or do you understand the reference of my question?
For sure. It's, I guess maybe just a little bit of history on the plan itself, because we've always recognized that interest to add density to the downtown area of Cochrane, with people there, creates, services, now have people going to their businesses, and it creates vibrancy and less sprawl. There's lots of benefits and everything. From a historic sense, though, in terms of when we were working on the approval, we are always cognizant of the importance of the direction that was given us is to make sure that we are reflecting what's happening in Riverview as much as we could in terms of at least the west side of the development. So we've been cognizant of keeping the density all within what we call District 2, where it's more apartments and everything. So we've essentially balanced out the density to meet the targets. Nevertheless, that doesn't, if council ends up being of interest of that and there is the market conditions, there is opportunities. I'm just bringing up my plan here. There's opportunities to discuss other parts of the development where additional density could go. So yes, the quick answer is yes, there's an opportunity to make those discussions, but I just wanted to make sure it was understood why we've kind of come to this point in time.
Yeah, and I think it was at our own direction, but just I'm just, don't want to have to be back doing another amendment later or contemplating another change to something. I know that plans cost money, time is money. We want to see the commercial, and there's a lot of benefits to what we're talking about, but just don't want to have all those decisions made at the front end. Maybe is there opportunities in the future? I'll stop hand talking now. Looks like Mr. Hagan has a comment.
Good evening, Josh Hagan with Burns West. Great question, and the candid answer is having some really good discussions with some top tier builders that specialize in stacked townhouse development. You'll see with phase 3, as well as we go through the development permit process, there's some really good smart density that's going to be proposed in there next to the high street to support those local businesses. As Patrick said, wanting to at the same time make sure that we adhere to the concerns and the conversations that were had adjacent to the Riverview community. So we're doing a slight increase, if you will, with this current proposal to accommodate some semi-detached product. But really that opportunity that I think is going to separate Greystone from a lot of the other communities and really make it that vibrant space is to add those higher density areas right next to that downtown, or right next to that high street area.
Okay, yep, thank you for that. Don't know if that has generated any other questions from council. Doesn't look like it. I think we're good for now. Thank you for your presentation. We'll move to the speakers list. I've got one person signed up so far, and it's Mr. Bob McLeod, representing the Bow River's Edge Campground Society. Mr. McLeod, if you'd come forward.
Good evening. This is a funny way to meet your neighbor. Certainly, we're interested in working with Greystone. We're certainly on the existing campground north border and looking to the future. If things go in our favor, we're looking at developing something to accommodate the public trails, preserving some sort of security around our campsite for our customers. But on the other hand, working with the town and to plan this area to be a very open and appealing public space. So really, I didn't realize I was actually on the speakers list. I just thought you wanted attendance. But anyway, I will meet our neighbors after this meeting, and thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. McLeod, we don't mean to put you on the spot, I guess, if you didn't want to speak, but
If you have a question, by all means.
I do, I guess. Has the Bow River's Edge Campground talked about the application? Are you generally in favor of what you're seeing tonight?
Generally, we just wanted to know what was going on the other side, on the other side of that sewer line, the main conduit, the main line there. We have a preliminary plan for the campsite that accommodates the block at the west end. That would be hopefully a public space. Of value to all of us, and we're certainly aware of the ATCO gas line and how we have to accommodate that, but we just wanted the opportunity to meet our neighbor and see the plan.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other meet your neighbor people on the list tonight, but if there's anyone in the gallery that wishes to speak for or against the application, now's the time. I don't see anyone darting to the podium, so council, any further questions of the applicant or anything further on the neighborhood plan? Don't see any. We'll close this public hearing and we'll take a 2-minute break, 5-minute break to get the feed switched over, and we'll come back into the next one.